So I speak for a lot of people in this room and a lot of people watching on live stream that what this saying is, okay, we're sold. We believe you. You don't have to prove it with any more research. We believe that what you're saying would be helpful. But I got to go home tonight. I don't own a juicer, and I'm hungry. So you're basic, and assume the person has health challenges. Their blood, they are pre-diabetic. Their sugar is not so good. They're overweight. They do need to be taking the best approach. So you're basically saying to them, you know, they're trying to figure out how to get filled. And you're saying you can have greens, and so they can buy spinach and kale and chard, but that might not fill them enough. You're saying they could have sea vegetables like sea dulse and nori, and they're saying that's pretty good. Where's the rest of this filling coming from? Are you saying load on the olive oil? Are you saying load on the seeds? Are you saying load on the nuts? Or are you saying go and take tons of lentil sprouts and bean sprouts? Or are you saying take tons of clover or onion and garlic sprouts? Like, how do we get filled A and satiated B? We believe you. We think this is fantastic. But to actually do it in practice, and I agree that, or I understand that you're saying if you juice twice a day, that makes all the difference. But assume someone doesn't have that juicer and they go home tonight, you know, how are they getting filled? How are they getting satiated so that at least they're full, and then we won't even worry about satisfied? How do they get filled? Where with cooked food, it's easy. You just have beans and grains and you're full. How in this live diet am I getting full?
I think the first question is, or statement is, there's never enough food to feed a hungry soul.
You got it. You got it.
That's the answer to the question. There's never enough food. Food has never meant that much to me. And the Native American sun dances, you go 4 days without food or water in the hot sun.
Which you've done.
Yeah, which I've done.
Which you've
4
done.
years in a row, right. It's no problem. So the food is really a little bit more mental than it is physical. Now, it doesn't mean people don't need food. Generally speaking, this is my observation, you can double check it, but as people get onto live foods, they find they eat less and less and less, and they're able to draw more energetic and material energy from the food. So first thing, we have to deal with our our mindset, before we start talking about diet, because really, people really are eating way more than they should be eating, generally, than what the body really needs. So, as I say, with the live food, it's a lot easier to eat less. Now, the second thing is, when you cook food, you lose 50% of the protein, according to the Max Planck Institute, maybe 60 to 70% of the vitamins and minerals, maybe 95% of the phytonutrients. Well, what that means, you've got to eat a lot more to get those. So a live food diet makes it a whole lot easier to eat less food and therefore not really overeat. In our 3-week program, and we don't focus on weight loss at all, average weight loss is 18 pounds in 3 weeks. We've had people lose as much as 48 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's not our focus. It's just what happens. But the key is, when you go to live foods, you really you can eat half as much and get the fuller nutrition, but you're also working on the mental aspect. That's why I want to emphasize with that.
No, we're going to just read from here for today. Thanks. Sorry.
Full disclosure, the diet that I use for many of the patients that I'm working with, for example, in the Marshall Islands and at home, I'm not using 100% raw food diet, so we do include some cooked food. So what we would suggest is a huge salad to help you feel full, a huge salad with every color of vegetable you can think of, but perhaps adding a little bit of steamed sweet potato, some legumes to help with satiety. Our salad dressing would be nut or seed based, so a tahini lemon kind of dressing, and you know, it's a pretty filling meal.
So if we're talking 100% raw living foods, which has been so successful at the Institute, we haven't had to add cooked food to people with diabetes. And the thing is, it's the step that you take. So let's say now that you go home and you go to your local store and you go to the organic section and you buy anything that's leafy green there. Okay, so you buy, if they have sprouts, you buy them. And of course, eventually you want to learn how to grow your own sprouts as much as you can. You get some peppers, you know, green peppers and unripe. So you have the yellow, the red, the purple. You get that. You get some ripened organic avocados. Avocados, unfortunately, if they're not organic, they're heavy-duty sprayed. So you want to go for the organic stuff. And you get some onion. I eat onion every day. It's full of sulfur. It's anti-inflammatory. Oh, my God. And you have ginger usually can buy there. You have garlic. You can make your own dressing. And you enjoy this. And then you can get nuts that are organic. So you'll buy some almonds, some walnuts. You soak those overnight. And then you can enjoy them in your salad. And so I think you start with baby steps like that. And like Brenda says, maybe you're not going to go 100% raw. Maybe because you're doing it at home. Maybe you have some vegan soup or you have some bowl of beans, and that will help you after all of the other stuff that you ate. Eventually, you want to start making juice because, boy, that fills you up. Nobody is ever hungry at our institute. Nobody will ever tell you, boy, you know, I could eat a ton more. No, you know, they're not hungry because the body is full and the body is satisfied. Every cell in your body is like, thank you for taking care. And we see it in the blood test before and after. Oh my gosh, how willing your body is to change when it gets the nourishment. We wish everybody had this experience. We wish everybody could have come to Gabriel, to the Institute, to Brenda to learn, because what an amazing world we would have if we all could learn how to take care of ourselves, which is our birthright.
It is, and it's something we've lost. It's something we've lost. You know, when I first changed, you know, the only advocates I had were my grandparents and their generation. They just really thought what I was doing was normal. And my poor parents thought I was nuts, because they had already been incorporated into dependency. So the way our systems in the world work today is to get you dependent upon the food chain, get you dependent upon the professional, get you dependent upon. So it was sort of refreshing for my grandparents and their friends and other people of that generation when I said, look, I'm going to take charge of my life. They said, of course, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And why a lot of you are tenuous about this is because you don't know it, but you've been gobbled up by corporate interest. You're below the waterline. You're drowning is what's happening. And this is much more simple than you can imagine. You know, it's sort of ironic. I have this institute, and I sit there and I pat myself on the back, but I sort of have an absurd job. It's really a weird job. I have to teach grown adults how to live. Why didn't their parents do this? Why didn't the school system do this? Why didn't the spiritual systems do this? And you sit here at 50, 60, 70 years old trying to figure out what the heck is going on? How can we live? Isn't that weird? Don't you think that's weird to begin with? Yes. I think it's really weird. It's weird that we have to hold this conference, that we basically have to spend 10 days a year, bring the world's leading authorities in here to hopefully disseminate truth around the world. Why isn't truth readily available? Why isn't truth the number one thing, the first thing that everyone gets, and then the nonsense comes after that? You know, what we have is a nonsense at the top of Google, and the truth you have to look for like a pin in the matter of hay. And, you know, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. So people say, oh, Hippocrates and Gabriel, and, you know, we had a conference at Gabriel's several years ago called the Elders Conference, where we had Victoras Kulvinskas there too. And we all came to the same conclusion after 200 years of work in this field. And it's not that we've invented anything. There's nothing we're telling you that we invented. We're just bringing you back to where people were and showing you how it works. And in some way, validating it, you know. And a lot of you need science because you believe science. You know, science is a facade. I'm going to tell you that right now. Example is what you need. I'll take one good example of somebody who reversed diabetes than I will 55,000 studies, although we read those studies every single day. They sort of get boring after a while, to be honest with you. What we don't want to do is intellectualize the process of healing. We want to use our heart for healing. We want to use our soul for healing. We want to use God, the Spirit, for healing. Because every single healing is a spiritual healing. And to come to a realization where you respect and honor life so much, that you really humble yourself so much, that you turn yourself over to nature, that's what we're asking you to do. This isn't a scary thing. What we're doing is scary.
So I want to go back to my exact question, because I'm saying that there's a lot of people that are 100% in. They want to do this. They see the crazy things. They are trying to figure out what to have for lunch. So again, they got to understand, lettuce doesn't fill us. No one's satisfied with iceberg lettuce. The onion doesn't do it. So now you have lettuce and onion and you're starving. So now you've got to add something. So our choices. So, no, and of course the emotional health and exercise and sleep. But in terms of the food, to get down to exactly, on top of that salad, we're putting greens on, that helps. But where are you saying people are going to get the satisfaction? Is it the greens? Is it the sea vegetables? Is it the onion, clover, radish sprouts? Is it sprouted grains? Is it sprouted beans? Should we load tons of seeds on, tons of nuts? Should we put olives? Should we put avocados? Like, in other words, one way to do this is with fruit. If we're saying fruit is out, then we're saying fat. We could all load loads of avocado, olive oil, and nuts. If you're saying that's not what you're saying, then are you saying we will get filled up with onion and clover sprouts, radish sprouts? Where is the hardcore satiation coming from so that this can become a reality, assuming we want to do it?
So what Gabriel is doing is what Hippocrates is doing. So let him speak with one loud, clear voice. Exactly, we all came to this conclusion.
Right. So as I started with, there's never enough food to feed the hungry soul. The real satisfaction comes within. So when we are in touch with our soul food, and we are really operating from that deep sense of fullness within ourselves, we aren't really eating to get full. The emptiness that we're talking about is an inner emptiness, and I mean that really seriously. Because when you are full from within, you really aren't that hungry, and you use your food not to fill the emptiness, but to maybe give you a certain amount of energy that you need. And that's questionable too, but the point is, if you're really talking about filling yourself, then that means something else is going on that's not related to food. So fill from the inside first, then the food is secondary, and you pick the right amount, supply the right for your particular energy needs and your particular constitution. This is a key concept.
Nuts, seeds, sprouted, nuts, seeds, nuts and seeds, nuts and seeds, nuts and seeds. They're the fillers, they have the fats, they have the proteins, although you're not getting most of your protein from that. Sprouts give you the most protein, but the fact is the nuts and seeds give you that cessation that you're looking for.
Is that a risk if you're having too many avocados, olives, nuts, and seeds, that you're getting too much fat?
There is a too many, but I mean, you'd have to be completely off the deep end to get too many on this thing. I was more worried about overeating pork chops at one point.
I once met a person that was eating 8 avocados a day. The only person I ever saw gain weight on a life-food diet.
I know who that is.
And you add spinach and arugula, you add all kinds of leafy greens too. They all come in with their own phytonutrients and help you too.
But you're not saying that, you're saying you want us to fill up on the greens and the sprouts and not really use the avocados, olives, nuts, and seeds as the main thing. Like, if I put 8 tablespoons of olive oil on my dressing, that's not what you're suggesting.
Well, everybody's constitution is different. Some people need more fat, some people need more protein. I think the issue is the inner, and then specific to your constitution. I'll add one more trick. It's not really a trick. Chew your food 50 to 100 times, and you'll see you're, again, mentally overeating. If you chew your food, you're getting a lot more nutrition, but it keeps you from just stuffing yourself trying to stuff your emptiness. So just a few things like
I'll
that.
give you a story. I have this wonderful man I know. He's a macrobiotic teacher, really humble, beautiful man from Italy, lives here in the United States now. And his father was a renowned chef in Italy during the Second World War. And the Nazis, I didn't realize, even hated chefs. You didn't have to be Jewish or Catholic or an artist or a homosexual. They hated chefs, anyone who was of a higher placement. So he was in a concentration camp during the entire war. And after the war, they gave him an award. He was the only man that survived. Even the last group of men that were there, I think they all died shortly after they were released. And he never spoke about this. And on his deathbed, he said, "Daddy," he said, "I'm so happy you lived so much longer and I got to know you, that you didn't die during the war," because he was born at the beginning of the war. And he finally talked. He said, "What did you do?" He said, "They would give us a little tiny bowl of grains a day and dirty water. They would actually, and I won't say what they did, but do horrible things to the water and then put it in." And he said all the other men would eat it like this, like they were wild and ravish and consume. He said, "I went to the back away from everyone. I closed my eyes and I actually decorated the table with fine linen, new linen every day, and fine china every single day, and crystal glasses. And I closed my eyes and I created a meal, and I chewed and I chewed and I chewed and I chewed." And he said, "As my father was dying, I was crying, thanking God my father knew how to chew." That's how powerful it is. This guy survived the Holocaust because he chewed. There was no nutrition in this stuff. But the reality is the little bit that was there sustained him.
Take an audience question. Back there, that one.
Hi. Oh, thank you. I have a lot of questions, especially about the vegan style diet. Like, for example, I have a husband who's very thin. He has the opposite problem. He doesn't have a weight gain problem, but a weight loss problem. And so, if I just gave him salads, there's no way he'd be starving before he went to bed. Usually I, feed him quite well, and then he's hungry again before bed. But his blood sugars were pre-diabetic. And I'm an avid gardener. I planted apple trees. I have a lemon tree and an orange tree growing in my house. I have chickens. I've planted organic garlic. You name it. I've got it in my garden. And so we do believe in, taking control of what we're eating and eating organic and all of those things. But I stumbled across, there's two questions that I have, because the blue zones where people live to be over 100, aren't they eating meat? I think that they are, right? In those like Sardinia, Okinawa, some of these places where the people all tend to live over 100, they're not vegans, right? They're eating meat. That might be my first question. Isn't that correct?
Did you want me to answer that right away? We'll do one question at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The blue zones, there are 5 blue zones. One is the Seventh-day Adventist vegetarians of Loma Linda, so they're not consuming any meat, but some are lacto-ovo-vegetarian, some are vegan. The second is Okinawa, Japan. The only notable animal product included is fish, and they eat on average 1/2 ounce a day. So that's 15 grams, so that's about 3.5 ounces a week. Not very much at all. We have the people in the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, and so the other 3, the Nicoya Peninsula, Icaria, Greece, and Sardinia, Italy, they all include small amounts of animal products, but the diet is predominantly plant-based. They all consume a lot of legumes, and they're all consuming, they're consuming predominantly unprocessed foods. The amounts of animal products differ a little bit within these populations, but is still very, very low.
The story about the blue zones, love, is not that they're eating a small amount of fractional meat, and most are not. It's that they're eating overwhelmingly plant-based diets. The latest study that came out on centurions, Anna Maria presented 2 days ago. It's out of New England, on thousands and thousands of people. They actually looked at not only centurions, But what was it, 80-some people that are over 110 years old. Guess what? The people who eat the most plants and all plant diets live the longest. Now, this is in writing out of the hierarchy of mainstream science at this point. So the point is, your husband who has diabetes has to stop eating the eggs out of the chickens you have running around, has to stop eating meat. By the way, healthy diets do not put weight on your body. Healthy diets do not. Your husband needs to get into a gym, where I was for 3 hours today. Because skinny people, by the way, have to build muscle, or you're going to be awfully skinny. And by the way, chubby people, like fat people like I used to be, have to get into the gym to get rid of that. Take your fat and produce muscle. 82% of muscle comes from fat, so it's great to be chubby in this case. You know, it's harder for your husband. It's going to take him 3 years to do what you can do in a gym with a chubby person in 6 months. So that's what has to happen. It's not just about eating food. You know, every one of us here, I know, every one of these people, we all exercise a lot, all of the time.